RPM, 78 RPM.
What's your name?
Robert Peter Munves.
What are your initials?
RPM, and they are on every phonograph record. 78, 33 and a third,
Look up.
16 and whatever it was, all RPMs. And that's why maybe I was destined to be in the phonograph record business. I grew up with phonograph records. When I was a baby, my Irish governess and I danced into the wee hours of the night with Irish jigs, mainly on the Columbia Green label, pop label. And green, of course, was an Irish color, because you had the thing that was associated with Ireland was clover, and clover was green. So Columbia had a green label. Now, the green label of Columbia were the ethnic records. The Jewish records were on the green label, the Hungarian records, the Russian records, all of them were on that green international label.
I have a question for you.
Yes, what?
This particular video is a story that you wanted to share about Bernstein.
Oh, yeah.
So could you please, this is a great story.
Well, this is years later when I joined the Columbia Masterworks in the marketing division. And I went, and not only was Masterworks responsible for all the classical recordings, but we also had all the original Broadway shows, which was terrific. In fact, the pop department several times tried to get it away from the classical department because it was one of the big sellers that we had on classical. In fact, it made the classical recordings possible because we made so much money out of the hit Broadway shows. I mean,
and one day in Philly. One day in Philly.
And so as part of my job, I was supposed to go down to Philadelphia where a lot of the shows were trying out. And in this instance, it happened to be West Side Story. And I went down and I saw West Side Story, which is a modern retelling of Romeo and Juliet with the two warring families. The two warring families in this case happened to be gangs, two gangs that were at each other's throats. And so the music was great, the dancing was great, everything was terrific. So they had probably knocked the show into pretty good shape by the time I went down there. But Lenny told me they were taking whole numbers in and throwing them out and then replacing them with new numbers. And it was a very, very trying time. So I went down to see West Side Story so I would get familiar with the show before it was recorded at Philadelphia. And I saw the first act and I was bowled over. It was terrific. And I went out to walk around during intermission, and in one of the rooms, Lenny had his foot up against the wall, and he was nervously smoking a cigarette. So I said, Lenny, this is a stone smash hit. It's one of the greatest shows I've ever seen. And he took me in his arms, and he hugged me. I thought the air was going to leave my body. It was the biggest hug I'd ever gotten in my entire life, It was fantastic. And so he needed that assurance. But it took a long time for them to knock that show in place. I saw it probably about 2 or 3 or 4 weeks before it actually hit New York, And that was terrific. And later on, many years later, when they made it into a movie, they had 7.5 minutes of no music while they were running the credits to open the movie. And Lenny had to write new music for that 7.5 minutes. It might have been even close to 10 minutes, whatever it was. There was no music for the credits. So he wrote the music there in Hollywood when they were filming the whole thing. But the thing that made the whole show was the choreography of Jerome Robbins. He is a genius. He choreographed a lot of Broadway shows, and he was absolutely one of the great geniuses of Broadway. And the dancing made this show. The two gangs were dancing. They had different dances. One was a white gang, and the other one was a more of an ethnic gang, and they had two different types of dances, and the music changed from one gang to another. So the rehearsals must have been very arduous because the dancing was very important, and all these actors had to learn those dances. They were terrific. So Jerome Robbins did the choreography. Actually, he created the dances for the show, you know, and for many other Broadway shows too. But I must say that this is one of Lenny's greatest scores. It's still popular today in many revivals, and my God, I think it'll keep on going for many years and for many generations, because it's the story, in a way, of America and how these gangs became part of the American scene, and how they developed, and how they acted and reacted in a place that was completely foreign to them. They had to become assimilated. I'm So Easily Assimilated was a song that Lenny wrote for Candide, which is very, very funny, which kind of traces the history of the Jewish people who became assimilated in the cultures that they went to all over the world after they dispersed from the Holy Land. So they became assimilated all over the world. So when this woman, I forget her name, it wasn't Polnia Stashka, but it was something like that, when she sings "I'm So Easily Assimilated," you know, it was wonderful. And later on, Lenny was conducting the Vienna Philharmonic. You know, we made a big mistake at Columbia. We lost Lenny after the first 6 or 7 years, and he went to Deutsche Grammophon. Now, we weren't selling Lenny's records in Europe. You know why? Because he had the New York Philharmonic. When Deutsche Grammophon got a hold of him, they gave him the Vienna Philharmonic, which was a European orchestra. And lo and behold, he started to sell in Europe. And that was the difference. If we had realized that, we could have kept Lenny. Okay. You know.
Yeah.
That would have been a big thing. But at least we had the first 5 or 6 years, which were absolutely marvelous, you know.
And we're going to sign off on this one. If I might ask, what is your birthday?
What?
What is your birthday?
My birthday, May 15th.
What year?
I'm a Taurus.
What year?
1927.
And what do you attribute this amazing mind you have? What's one of the things you attribute to it?
Well, I think that I attribute my idea to hold on to the present and be with the present, my love of music. I think that music is a great exerciser of the mind, because it takes the mind to comprehend the music, to follow the musical lines, and to enjoy what's really going on. Because Lenny was a classically trained composer, but he brought all this technique that he had to creating the score for West Side Story, which included a lot of other musics than classical, you know, pop music, black music, Latin music. It was all there in West Side Story. So he became a cultural figure of the world, because he absorbed other cultures and brought it into his music.
Right.
You know.
And in closing, if he were here today, what would you say to Lenny? Look at the camera. Jenny's here.
What would I say? Mm-hmm. Thank you. God bless you. May you continue to thrive wherever you are.
And do you love him?
I loved him.
All right. We love you.
Terrific.
Okay.